Hello, today is the 13th of February 2023, and this is a closing video in the whole Marthe saga. There's not going to be anything more published. This whole thing started in 2012 when I was contacted by a spirit. Being a non-believer, I thought that these were just dreams. But we all have dreams, and we all know what dreams are like. And these dreams were not like, your average dream. When you dream, things tend to run like a film, and a lot of these things don't make sense. Um, and you don't take any part in the decisions that you make in the dream. That's what makes dreams like a movie. But these dreams were extraordinary in that, first of all, they were very vivid. They were very clear. And amazingly, in these dreams, I was myself, and I could think, and I could act as if I was awake. That's what made these dreams different and in many ways disturbing. So I began to take notice of these dreams, and the dream started shortly after I saw this photograph of this dead infant from the 1800s, and seemed to know who she was. She stirred some kind of deep memory. I didn't know who she was, but I decided to embark on a search for her identity, which was a very difficult thing to do. It's very hard to trace somebody from a photograph that was taken over 120 years ago, somewhere in the world, without any information. But strangely, and with my background in internal auditing and looking at things in a very forensic kind of way, and with a hell of a lot of luck, I did find out who she was. When I found out her name, and I traced her burial place, I thought it was right for me, appropriate for me to go and visit her burial grave, a burial site, and to lay some flowers and a tribute. And I had this strange idea come into my head that I had to take a Victorian doll. That's to say, a doll that was in the style and the design of a doll in the Victorian days. I thought, well, maybe that's just a touch, from myself, and I am an artist, and maybe I thought that a Victorian doll was appropriate. But Victorian dolls are very hard to find. I did actually find a manufacturer, and they'd given up creating these Victorian dolls, and they only had last one in stock. And I bought it. It arrived in a box, and I didn't even unpack it. I just assumed that this was, because it was the only one I could get hold of, that this would be appropriate. And I took it with me on the expedition to visit Marthe's grave, and I laid the doll on the grave, and it was a bride, a Victorian bride, holding a little bouquet and with a wedding gown. And somehow it was very emotional. When you go to visit the grave uh, of a total stranger, you don't feel any connection to this person. Why would you go anyway? Why would you visit the grave of a total stranger? But when I went there, it was like visiting the grave of a relative, a very dear relative. Uh, and that very night that I visited the grave and went to sleep in the hotel room, I had this dream. Um, and then she told me in this dream that I was actually a relative, and that I was once her father in a previous life. This was quite a shocking revelation because, I mean, I didn't believe in these things, but it seemed to me that spirits were real because all the information that she gave me later checked out on documents. And you can't explain that. You've got proof that what she was telling me was the truth. Um, and she told me that I was once her father, Charles Hector Thierry, born in 1852, lived in the Rue des Bouchers, uh, number 7, which was later changed to number 11. I had another 2 daughters. One was called Emily. She died in 1879 as a baby of pneumonia, aged only 17 days. Then another daughter was born in 1880 called Helene. Uh, she survived and grew up and got married. Marthe was born in 1884 and she passed away in 1886 when Helene was only 6 years old. So this spirit, the whole reason that she contacted me was she said, that I had to do certain things for her, and she gave me a number of jobs. Now, I didn't have to do these things. Why should I? I could have turned around and said, well, who are you to tell me what to do? And even if I was at one time your father, I'm not your father now. So why should I listen to you? But I sensed, and it's hard to explain this, but I sensed that it was important for her, that it was a very serious matter, almost a kind of a life and a death thing for her. So if I didn't do it, I could be creating problems for her, and I decided that I'd better try and fulfill her wishes. Um, Throughout this relationship that I had with this dead person, there seemed to be a thread running all the way through that connected us. Obviously, something that I'd never experienced before, uh, but I kind of held on to that belief just in case it, it just in case it was a matter of life and death. Um, I mean, I'll give an example, and please don't think I'm crazy. This is what I was told, and what she said was that when people die, they are reincarnated. They go to this place that's called the void, where a light comes for them and takes them away, and then they're reincarnated. But apparently, it did not happen for her. This light did not come for her. So there was something wrong with the reincarnation process where she was stuck here but had died. And that's apparently what we call spirits. Spirits are people that have not managed to be reincarnated and they're left here. So what she wanted was to be reincarnated. And she said a lot of things about energies and how, certain relatives share energies. Uh, and that because I was related to her, or my spirit was related to her, I had the same energy as her. So when I died, I could take her with me. Because when this light came for me and absorbed me, she was the same essence, and she would also be absorbed. Um, I don't know how that works, because it didn't seem to work, because after I fulfilled all her wishes, and there were some very, very difficult uh, things that I had to do. I had to, for instance, take legal action to rescue her burial site. That was one of the things that she wanted me to do, because the burial site, uh, her grave, had been purchased for 100 years by her father in 1886. So in 1986, the grave was no longer um, no longer belonged to that family. However, because cemeteries fill up very quickly, they had put somebody on top of her, right? So that was in 1962, right? And that concession expired in 2012. And in that particular part of the cemetery is divided into parks, and this was Park 22 out of 40 parks. So Park 22 had about 2,000 burials, and Mart's grave, the person lying on top of her, was the very last concession to expire. So once that concession expired, they could bring in the diggers and clear Park 22 and then resell the burial pits to fresh customers and make millions of euros. So Mart said, you've got to stop them doing that. And of course, I mean, I might have been a relative of Mart's at one time, but now I'm I'm somebody totally different. I'm not a family member per se, as you would think of family members. Uh, at this time, Mart is not related to me legally at this time. So nobody listened to me. Uh, so it was very tough uh, to get an injunction, but I did succeed. Uh, and as it happened, they ultimately, after several years of wrangling, the cemetery gave up and they said, well, we're not going to dig up Park 22. We're going to just leave the burials as they are. And because they've got, other parks that they can develop, and so why go to all this trouble just for Park 22? So, in a sense, not only did I save Mart's burial, not only did I save the burial of her grandmother and other relatives, including Emily, that are buried in Park 22, but we saved the burial of about 2,000 people. Everybody got saved. Um, now, uh, those requests were fulfilled, and I won't go into any details here, but the two most important ones were the rescue, the burial, and the very last request that she made was she said, my parents divorced after my death, and I want them to remarry. I cannot bear the fact that my parents divorced. This is driving me crazy. Now, given that problem, right, you can clearly see uh, how difficult it was. I mean, the parents are dead. So how do you marry two dead people? Okay, they divorced in 1894, right? Over 100 years ago. So how can you marry two dead people? Well, we thought about this long and hard, and we came to the conclusion, right, that if Mark's parents were reincarnated, the people that they now are can speak for those dead souls. So if I was her father, then I can speak for Charles Hector Thierry. And if this woman in Lima, Peru, Zelma Nancy Munoz Vasquez, is or was Mart's mother, she can speak for Mart. So I contacted Zelma, who believes that she's Mart's mother, right? Because Mart's spirit apparently contacted her as well, right? So we put our heads together and we said, well, since we are these deceased people in a way, right, or we once were these deceased people, we can speak for them and we can agree to a marriage ceremony on behalf of those people, a virtual ceremony, a virtual marriage, because we can't present the dead people in a place of worship to get married. It has to be virtual, right? And because we were once these people, we can legitimize this marriage by agreeing to it. You can't just take two actors and put them together and ask them to marry somebody that lived years ago. But if you had the reincarnation of these people, it's not it's a serious business. These people can actually make the marriage legitimate. So on that basis, we constructed a virtual ceremony, and Hector and Mathilde were married on the 9th of March last year. Now, we chose the 9th of March because that was actually the date in 1894 on which they got divorced. So that was a, a little bit of essential thinking on our part. They must have been terribly upset on the day of their divorce. So why not bring a little bit of happiness into that memory? Now, this is the last video about Marthe that I will ever make. There's not going to be, unless there are any developments. But what happened was, after this virtual ceremony took place, Marthe vanished. She went away. After so many years of being in my dreams, and communicating, and actually, this is very hard to believe, but there were physical manifestations in the house, noises and sounds and things moving and stuff, and lights and singing and all kinds of, and you would not believe it, right? Unless you saw it and you heard it. And I made a video, and I took some video of these things happening, and I put them on there, and I said, well, tell me what that is, right? I couldn't catch everything. There was in this room there was an electric radiator that was in the corner there, uh, on the our left side of the wardrobe, and I watched it roll all the way until it was there by the door. That was one instance. The other instance was that this right-hand drawer, a door of the wardrobe, open and shut, open and shut, open and shut, continuously for a few minutes. But by the time I got the camera out to record it, it had stopped. Now, on another occasion, every clock um, in this house, and there are several clocks, and they aren't connected together. They're not connected to the mains. They work on batteries. But every single clock in this house stopped at the same time, as if all the batteries were discharged at the same time. Um, there's only one thing that could do that, and that's some kind of electrical field that knocked out the batteries in the house. I say that because the batteries in this house were always failing. Batteries, brand new batteries inside remote controls would suddenly stop working. Batteries in the smoke alarms that are supposed to last a year suddenly stop working, and all of them at the same time. So these strange things, I'm mentioning them because I can't explain them. Perhaps some of you, can, but to me, maybe one example, one event, could be explained. But how to explain dozens of events? These shadows. You would see shadows across the wall, and these are not, passing cars outside, or because the curtains are closed, right? And the noises. Well, there's, I'm the only one living in this house, and there's nobody dropping things or making a noise or singing, even screaming, uh, in this house. And I managed to get a video of the screams. They're spine chilling. Where are the screams coming from? I don't have any neighbours. This is a detached house. The neighbours are, hundreds of feet away. Um, they're not sounds of an animal, and an animal couldn't get into, for example, the roof space. There's nothing up there. I've been up there. Um, I've got closed circuit television cameras. Um, you can just see the screen there. I would know if there was somebody outside, or if there was a passing car, or or whatever. But in any case, right, I started to become a believer, and it was very difficult for me, because I'm a scientist. I don't never have believed in this spooky stories, and they're just people's imagination and people's mind playing tricks, hallucinations or something like that. But I'll tell you what, when it happened to me, right, I took a scientific view of it, and you know decided that you cannot record a hallucination, you know, with a camera. How do you explain? It's the camera hallucinating. That's not possible. If it was a hallucination, then it would be real to me, but there'd be nothing captured by the camera. But these things are captured by the camera. So this video basically um, wraps up everything up by saying that as soon as that marriage ceremony was broadcast, Mark disappeared. Right? No more noises, no more sounds, nothing. Right? No more dreams. And yeah, I'm a human being, right? And I really, really felt bad. Not because she'd gone away, right? I was glad she'd gone, because all I ever got from her was grief and, Daddy, you've got to do this, and Daddy, you've got to do that, right? I was relieved that she'd gone, but I was very upset um, at the fact that she hadn't said thank you or hadn't said goodbye. Uh, I did a lot for Marthe uh, in the 11 years that she was here. I did a lot for her, and it cost me a lot of money. You know, Going to Brussels and booking hotels and sitting there for hours and hours in front of a laptop writing the book, which took 2 years to write. Um, Her story, if you like. Doing all that extraordinary research. Things like bus fares and train tickets, and it cost a lot of money to do the research, right? So, nobody does that for a wild goose chase. We're talking, pound notes, right? So I went to a lot of trouble, and I felt that the least that Marthe could have done was to say thank you and goodbye. But she didn't. She just, boom, nothing. And, well, it's been almost a year now since she left. And throughout the whole year, I have seen, heard, and felt nothing. Now, while she was here, right, there was there were disturbances in the kitchen, right. I had this feeling of fear that I was going to see something bad in the kitchen. I couldn't explain it. It was totally, you know, without any kind of purpose. It just was like a feeling in my stomach that, don't go into the kitchen. Don't go there. Right? So I developed a habit of kind of, you know, opening the door a little bit and it'd be dark inside, and turning on the light. I didn't get this feeling during the daytime when there was light, only at night. If I had to go make a cup of tea in the evening or go there and, cook supper or something when it was dark, I always had to pry open the door and turn on the light before I opened the door. And there would be nothing there. I'd never saw anything, right? But there was this kind of primeval, almost an instinct, an instinctive fear. Now, I've got one of those American K2 meters. They're supposed to be spirit meters, you know. When I say supposed to, they actually work. They actually work. Um, and I bought one, and I would walk around the house with this K2 meter in my hand, and in the kitchen, it would go wild. It would go crazy, right? After she left, I took the meter into the kitchen, and there was nothing. There was nothing. There was nothing triggering that meter in the house. Sometimes the signals were there, sometimes they weren't, right? We don't have a mobile phone tower anywhere near here. It wasn't being triggered by, the fridge or the microwave or anything like that. I checked all these things out, right? But there was something that was very close to the meter. Because if you moved the meter, just a foot or so, the signal would be affected. So the meter was picking up something that was within a few feet of this device, and you couldn't see anything there, right? Well, as soon as Mark left, this feeling also vanished. I now, it could be midnight, and I just walk into the kitchen, turn the light on, like normal. That feeling that I had has gone. And I can't explain it. I don't know why I had that feeling before, and why it 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 went away. So that's the end of the Marthe saga. She is gone. I'm glad she's gone, and I would like to think that she was trying to find peace, um, and that she found peace. And as for all the work, the money, the effort, and everything, and a lot of people helped, well, maybe it was worth it. Maybe we did save a soul. So thank you very much for all those people who followed the Marthe saga. I can name a few, but if I named everybody, I'd be here all night. But you'd all know who you are, and there were a lot of skeptics, but there were also a lot of people who encouraged me, to find out who is this Marthe, and what does she want. Well, we succeeded. It took some time, right? And for all those who are probably watching this video who have no idea what I'm talking about, who was Marthe? Uh, I wrote a 500-page book, which is called Marthe, right? It's available on Amazon.com. There's a hardcover copy, a paperback, and it's also on Kindle for a few quid. And it's got Marthe's story and how it all went, and how we did the search. When I keep on saying we, there was different people at different times. Um, I I held it all together. Um, so if you want to know Marthe's story, there is a book that is available on Amazon that tells you everything that happened. But don't think that the book is going to mention ghosts and spirits, because I wrote it professionally and I kept the ghosts and the spirits bit out. Otherwise people would think that it was just another crackpot. So the supernatural, paranormal bit, I actually admitted on the videos, but it is paranormal. Uh, and I didn't believe in the paranormal, but I changed my mind, you know, just as well, because I don't know how many years I've got before I, pass away. And if there is an afterlife, and you are reincarnated and reborn, then that's something to look forward to. So maybe it was a good thing. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you giving me the time and listening to what I said. And to Marthe, Esther, Clotilde, Thierry, God bless you. And I hope that you have found peace at last and you have our love. Bye-bye.